This podcast contains content that may be disturbing to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
So tell me, ladies, how are y'all?
You know what?
Fantastic.
So
How are you?
Good. I'm really well. So we just have a lot of stuff going on, launch candles and living life at this point. So that's
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw your candles.
It's crazy.
Do you have a favorite scent of the candles that you're making?
Well, I made them all. So I made them all like a scent.
They're
that
all
I would
your
like.
babies.
So I guess, yeah, they are. I took 2 years to like formulate them.
Oh,
My husband
wow.
was like, let's do a vanilla. And I'm like, no, I'm a smell taste person all the way. And so, yeah,
Yep.
I went a little wild. Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm here, I guess, every single vibe. So we have like a vanilla almond one that's really good because nobody makes a good almond candle.
They don't.
It's just like really nice. No. And then there's like a really nifty, of course, like lavender, but it's not just straight up lavender because that can get really soapy really quick, right? So it's like, yeah, lavender eucalyptus with like a hint of like vanilla, like rounded out in the background.
Yum.
So
Yeah.
just to let you know, I sometimes when Carly and I are doing this, we get activity. So
Yeah.
I have some of my equipment over here. If they go off, that's why. And
I have mine on all the time normally too.
Awesome.
So
Oh, I love that.
we welcome anything to come through and anything that you want to let us know about. We are open to all of it. So
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
I like it.
What kind of equipment do you have set out normally?
So it just mainly me. And then sometimes I will go through and I like to go on and try different spirit boxes because 99% of them are absolute horseshit because they're just there for it. Sorry. They're just there to scare people. And like people are like, oh my God, it said I'm going to kill you. Well, yeah, that was programmed in there. Like, whatever.
don't use the apps.
Yeah, don't. Well, there's a couple apps. So like Steve Huff, really like him. He's one of my friends. He has the thing called a Miracle Box app. Well, all it is just frequency, and they change the frequencies into words. So I have a lot of really cool things I've caught with that. And there's another one that I really like right now. It's called Necrometer or Necrometer, whatever I say, Necrometer. But the text is pretty nifty because I'll have it on during sessions a lot of times. And I think there's somebody here from yesterday right now.
Oh.
But like their name will come through or I will ask them a question in my head and it'll show up here. And I'll be like,
wow.
do you have like an Uncle Lewis? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I have the proof here. Right?
I love that.
Okay, I'm going to try both of those. I've never used either one of them.
Yeah. What was the first one?
So the first one is called the Miracle Box app.
The Miracle Box.
Yeah. And so it's $10. And then this one is called Necrometer or Necrometer. And it's $9.99 as well. Now, and then they have the text version. And then they have just the voice where you're going in and they're manipulating the frequencies. And this one has been proven to not be able to be debunkable because there's no word box in the back. It's just noise, right? But one thing that everybody forgets is that it's not the spirit that's doing it. It's like 60% us. It's our connection to them.
Sure.
We are the battery for it, right?
Yes.
And so they're just rolling into it being like, answer this question. Shit's not going to happen. You're the battery. So you have to focus and sometimes you'll get that stream of pop, 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 and then it'll be silent.
I like that. You're the battery.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
It is. Yeah. Well, we've been talking to some of our other guests about how a lot of the hauntings are mostly caused by ourselves, like
Your energy.
Yeah. And this just seems like a natural flow of that, but with devices. And that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
it
cool.
is. Well, because remember, they go into your brain, they go into your body, they use it like a computer, they use your energy, and you are the channel, right?
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's not spooky. It's fun for me now. I do spooky.
I
every day.
I agree.
Yeah. So, tell me about y'all. I read about y'all.
Oh, wait, we want to hear about you first, though.
Yeah. Oh, me? Oh, I just work here.
Just kidding. We can do whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, dude, y'all tell me. Sorry, I love people.
I just work here.
No, you can. Do you have any specific questions for us? We can answer those, and then we would. But yeah, we're excited to ask about you too.
Oh, okay. So with the education thing, obviously PhDs and stuff involved. And one of my big thing a long time ago, I think it's really cool, is that I wanted to go and still do at some point and get my degree in divination. Just
wow,
because
you should.
I want to. And the reason being is because I have so much proof behind it, right? And then also if I go through and I get this degree in divination, right, then people will be like, oh my God, she does that and she has this. Maybe this is a real thing too. It's essentially, my whole thing is making everybody realize that you are more than just your corpse that you're dragging around, right? You are everything. You're an animated corpse. That's all you are. So with that, so what made you do the PhDs, and like what prompted you? And then where are you at now versus when you were going into education? Like how have your views and mindsets changed? Sorry, big question.
No, you're good. I've always been interested in it all, of course. And I thought maybe people will take me more seriously if I have the PhD behind my name, but it doesn't matter. People don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I did learn a lot. I learned a lot, and but at the same time, like, you still have the people that are like, yeah, it's all horse shit. But I did learn a lot, and I would highly recommend anybody who wants to go that route to do it and get as much education as you can. Because I feel like people feel like it all needs to be proven. We can't just go off of our spidey senses or whatever. And so I think being able to get in there and kind of prove ways where science can back up some of our paranormal experiences is really cool.
But then we go on the thing of like, what is proof? Proof is only more than 30 people agreeing and pushing it out to the world and having everybody else agree with it. I mean, it was proof that Hitler was the best, right? But really he wasn't.
And it really is all dependent on people and their views and their opinions. And
opinions.
It is what
it is. And those
is.
are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Everybody has one. Yeah, no, that is true. What is proof? What makes it more valid or not valid?
I remember getting the question once. Yeah. So you have the evidence, but where's the proof? And I'm like, isn't evidence kind of considered proof? I don't know.
It is. Yeah.
What is proof?
Yeah. Oh, that's another one of those mind screw topics. We can have that on like another episode. Sit here and ask the big questions.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. Yeah. Well, because if I've said something, like if I've gotten a message and a device backs up what I've said, that's proof to me. Like I didn't, I'm not controlling, I'm not even touching that device.
Especially when you have more than one go off at the same time. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just like that I have thousands of hours of proof now, and people come up to me and they're like, you're not real. And I'm like, I'm sure that I am. Like, I swear this is real right now.
Thank you.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's fun. So tell me about what was, like, I should say, the turning point for you going, oh, wow, there is something to this. What was like that aha moment? It doesn't have to be now. It can be when you're like 5, right?
Well, I grew up around the paranormal. My uncle was a mortician, and he had lots of stories, and we had lots of experiences there. My dad died when I was 2, and I'm pretty sure he stuck around for a while because my mom was raising 5 kids on her own. And I mean, I've always just kind of had a knowing that there was something beyond just this life, and that the paranormal exists all around us. And it's just always been part of my life. How about you, Carly?
Yeah, mine is different. I never, I feel like I always sensed things. I always had strange experiences, but I always categorized it as anxiety because I didn't have another frame of reference. Nobody talked about it. So it just was, okay, I'm afraid to be alone. I got a swift kick up the ass when I moved from Texas to Florida and my house was very haunted. So it just was like a series of events that was like, to me, it felt like the universe was snapping its fingers in my face and being like, hey, pay attention. And when I didn't pay attention, they were like, it's time for a slap. They loudly got my attention and was like, here, since you're not listening, here's a very dramatic series of events. And now you will pay attention to us. And I did.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Now, I just want to take a note real quick. I looked down for half a second because my little box was going off, and I took a screenshot of it. So as you were talking about your story with your dad, at the same time, I took a screenshot. As you said 2, it said 2, TOW, which is very cool. And then as it began talking about it, it said ghost box, it said spirit box, it said talk to it, like all this stuff. So we have a little bit of activity going on right now.
Hope I get something, man.
Oh, you will. You will. Oh, just wait. This will be cool.
I love this. Is going to be great.
What about you, Amie? How did you find out you had these abilities, and when did this all start for you?
I didn't really find out. They just kind of tracked me down. When I was, but when I was little, I was 5. And so I had cancer for the first time and I lost it. So I keep this in my desk all the time because that's me, and keep like no hair. And so it was stage 3 going to stage 4, and essentially had my first near-death experience on the table because it was like bleeding out, right? And so I remember coming home a couple of weeks after having the surgery and going through chemotherapy for 2 years and everything like that. And I remember telling my mom, I remember exactly what it looked like, was seeing this little floating, what I guess at my point explained as like a little girl in a like a turquoise dress, like chiffon dress in the corner of my room. And I remember talking about that. And then after that, I mean, it's just been one thing after another, from more near life death experiences to just having things you can't explain happen and getting them all, on video. It just keeps going on every day.
Yeah. Death is familiar to you, and Melissa too. But Melissa wrote her thesis on near-death experiences.
Yes, and you know what? I don't think I've ever met anybody that's had more than one.
Really? Yeah, I've had 4 now.
So my question is,
it is a lot. My husband calls me a cat.
So I have 2. I have 2 questions with that though. So the first one is, were they all similar? And the second one is, okay. So do you want to tell us about them at all?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll tell you about every single one of them. I'm an open book.
Sure.
When I was 5, I remember going in and then coming out of it. And, I remember being very annoyed because Scooby-Doo was playing on the television in ICU. Like, that's essentially it. And then I remember just being more connected to everything, and then seeing, of course, that woman. And then I began feeling weird things in my room. So flash forward, that was 5, going all through like kindergarten, going up into middle school. Everything was good. It kind of almost seemed a little bit normal, except I would do a weird thing where I remember I would ask my mom, my dad, and my sister about this. So my dad was in the Air Force for 31 years. He was a general. Okay, so he's like high up, right? And then he owned his own business, and he had like 3 masters. Like, these are not woo-woo people, right? And then my mom is a trigonometry professor at a college, and then all my other sisters are like big in the medical world, right? And then there's me. But I remember being little. I remember being small and going to the grocery store with my mom and my sister. I think it was about 5 or 6 at that point because I didn't have any hair. And I remember sitting in the cart and I was looking at this woman. My mom was in the pasta aisle and then the coffee was on this side. And I was staring at this lady and she was going to go pick up a bag of coffee. And I was like, she's going to get that one, like the one below it. She's not going to get the one she has her hand on, right? And so I watched her. And sure enough, she looked at it. She put it in her cart. She picked it back up. She put it back and she grabbed the one underneath and put it in her cart. And I remember being like, oh, what is that? And I turned around.
Nailed it.
Yeah. I was like, Mom, I know. Well, I was like, Mom. She's like, what? I said, can you hear people like thoughts and what they're going to get? And she was like, no, Amie. I'm like, oh, okay. I just remember being so innocent. That was my first like, oh, this is weird. And then my second near-death experience, I was, how old was I? I was 16. And I had contracted bacterial meningitis. Ooh. And I had it for my violin teacher, which is interesting. I had it for probably 2 or 3 weeks. My parents just thought I had a really bad headache. I stayed in bed for like, a week altogether, and they were like, it's not getting better. So finally they took me to the doctor and they were like, you got to get her like down to the hospital. And they put me down there. And I mean, I was in there for 2 weeks because it wasn't going away, and I coded because of the swelling and the antibiotics they gave me shut my kidney down. I only had one from the cancer that took it out, right?
No.
And, and I remember getting out of that. Now, this is a cool thing that happened with that. I don't really remember a whole lot at this moment from that, except for, you ready for this? I was playing violin since I was 5, and so I'm 16 at this point. And that year, after this happened, I told my parents that I wanted to switch to playing viola, which is a different clef. It's a different instrument altogether. And so that year, I think it was like October, I started playing. We had this big regional concert or like state concert we had to do the following, I think it was like April. I practiced and I made first chair in state on the viola that next year. And my orchestra teacher got so mad. Now, how did I go from like nothing to that? Number one, really weird. I had all this other stuff going, but that's when it really started. I would start reading people at my high school. I started reading people's family members that had died. I'd read my history teacher's husband who crossed over like the week before. Nobody know. Like that's started happening.
Wow.
Yeah, that was interesting. And
how was that received?
Then
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your flow there, but like that's such a young age, and that's that takes some balls to be like, "Hey, history teacher,"
I had a lot of balls. Let's just say that. No, at that point, I always tell my dad, he's crossed over too, but I would always say in my past life, I was probably like LeBron James or something like that, and now I'm in this crippled little body. But yeah, no, I just started feeling it. I guess my whole thing with this is that I started asking questions, and everybody else had these interesting things happen to them, but they would be quiet about it. And I was always the fun, talkative, let's get together type of person. So it just kind of like came naturally to me to just say, screw your opinion is, I'm going to go talk about this. Right. And so essentially I remember sitting in my desk in my history class. And I remember I get a thing when I have to read somebody, I start to shake. Like I get really anxiety, I'm talking about. And I'm like,
yeah.
But I mean, it starts to make you shake. And I started getting that. And I just it was like this push, and I just had to do it because if I didn't do that, that feeling would have not gone away. And it was correct. Right. So that's how that went. It was more the feeling.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was very cool. And the other thing was that there's all these people around, confirming it. So then they would call me spooky in high school, which was fine.
I was called that too for no reason.
See? Well, yeah, no, but it wasn't. But this wasn't derogatory. I know. But y'all are great. Y'all must have a lot of maybe Scorpio in your Mars or Scorpio in your Venus somewhere going on as well. So we'll have to go look at that. Oh, ha, ha, ha.
Scorpio.
Yeah, that's a vibe.
Yep, that's Melissa.
Yep. See, we'll look at you too. I'll show you as well. I'm a Scorpio as well. So we all kind of get together. It's that darker, heavier feeling. We also have the eyes. It's a very piercing thing.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so go on to your next near-death experience. Sorry to derail us there.
No, you're okay. You're okay. So what was my next one? God, what was that? Oh, yeah. I guess you would say my biggest one that I can recall is I was 25. I just turned 25 and I had gotten brain surgery for my birthday. I essentially was in a wheelchair. I couldn't walk. I couldn't pee by myself. I had to cath because of a genetic illness I have. And so I went in and I did a thing called Chiari malformation. It's a decompression surgery. They go in and they push up your tonsils in the back of your head. Anyways, it's a crazy surgery. Yeah, it was insane. And so they ended up sewing me up and everything was fine. Surgery was great. But because of my condition, I'm very stretchy, but it also causes, everything to bend backwards.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah. So, but this is all like part of it. So it like affects everything else. But so I have the one called classic. So it affects all of your tissues and joints a whole lot more instead of just being bendy. So what happens is it takes you almost twice as long to heal. So when they did the surgery, they sewed me up. Everything was great. But then they took the strips off and they took the staples out too early. So I kept getting a headache for like a month after. And you have brain surgery. Like you're supposed to have a fucking headache, right? You don't know.
Sure.
And and I'm laying in bed. It's 2 days after Thanksgiving. And I woke up and I wasn't feeling good that night before. And I woke up and I thought I had a really bad hot flash because all of my pillows and everything were wet. And I was like, weird. Why am I so hot? Why am I sweating like that? And I went and I realized when I sat up, it felt like my brain fell to my butthole. And I went back and my incision had opened up and it was all of my brain fluid all over.
Way.
Yeah, the whole thing just popped open, and that's what it was. So
how much brain
it's crazy.
Can you lose?
Well, you have a lot, and your body.
Wow.
Well, you can't lose a whole lot. Your body is making it constantly. That's what your bone marrow is for as well, and your ventricles.
Sure.
Like that's what causes this. And so, I called an ambulance. They said that they wouldn't be able to get me downtown as quickly as my family did. So they put me in the car.
Shut up.
I go down there. Yeah. So
They
I'm in a
literally
robe.
were like, "Oh, no, go now."
Yes, exactly. So I go, okay. So my poor mom comes running in, and I can't walk, and I'm like halfway blind, like this crippled, elf or whatever. So they throw me in the car, and I just remember riding, like looking at the sky because you can't do anything. And I was like, this is it. All right, this is it. And we get there, and they bring in a wheelchair. They bring me in, and I remember looking at the nurses as they're checking me in. I'm sitting in the wheelchair. Everything was very calm, but I was very calm. Everybody else was freaking out. They're like, we got to get her back. We got to get her back. She's dying, because they took my blood pressure. And I was like, just don't let me go home, please. Right? That's all I asked them. And so they take me to this back room, and they put me on this table, and I'm laying on my side because they're wanting to look at my incision right on the back of my head. And they take some samples of it, and they come back in, and they go, oh my God, we got to do they're essentially putting a tube in my spine to pull out all of my fluid because I had sepsis inside of it. So I had sepsis in my
on top
brain
of
fluid.
Everything else.
Yeah, so I had become septic shock. And
I can't believe you're still alive.
Are you ready for there's a better part to it? So as they're doing this, they say they're going to put this tube in, but because my blood pressure is so low and everything is freaking out, they can't give me any numbing or anything. So they go through, and I remember laying there, and they pull open my vertebrae, and they shove this tube through. I still have a thing. And because of that, my body goes into shock, and I'm laying there. The monitors are here. And I was like, oh. And everything starts to get really quiet, and everything gets really quiet. There must have been like 50 people around me. And I remember looking at it, and I was like, oh, wow, that's going down so far. Oh. And then all of a sudden, I shit you not, I went from being here to being here. And I was like, ooh, I'm getting chills. And I was like,
I have chills.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a thing. And I was like, wow, it was so quiet. There was no sound. It was only my thoughts, but I could hear my thoughts like clear as like a really good microphone. And I could see everything. And I was above. And all I thought was, I wish my mom knows I loved her.
Oh,
that's it.
Oh, that gave me goosebumps.
Oh, I know. It's a thing. And it was great. This is a weird thing. So my mom had to go and like park the car and come back in. So they had brought me in like before she even came back. And so they hadn't told her that I apparently had coded or anything like that. And so I remember going through this. This is the cool part. I remember going through, after I'm asking that, going through the stupid observation window that was in this room and going through. I don't know how it happened, but I went down and I was looking at the book my mom was reading. And it was the John Grissom book. And it had a metal swing set with a swing on it and her glasses. And she's sitting there. And then I woke up. And it was 2 weeks later. They had to put me in a coma. I coded for like 4.5 minutes. It was crazy. Yeah, when I woke up, I was on this bed. 4.5
minutes? That's insane.
It gets better. So I woke up, and I feel this, because I'm on one of these spongy beds that like keeps you going, like it has all the air pockets. And so I'm looking, and everybody comes over, and they're like, oh my God, you're alive. And they're like taking everything off. And I'm like, like, what the fuck happened?
What's going on?
Like, what's going on? Now, because of everything that was going on, because I'm like literally hooked up to every tube, because my body shut down. I had one kidney that went to, fuck it skis the entire time, the whole thing. And they wake me up. And this was the weird thing. Okay, so over my bed, there was a light. But because I'm so groggy, I look at that light, and they have everything off. There's no TV in here. It's in like the most top tier ICU you could possibly get. For the next 5 days while I'm in this place, I hear every time I'm awake, I hear the most beautiful classical music, the most good. And it is like it is in my brain anytime, and I can conduct it, and it's great. And I remember the nurse and my mom was in here, and I was like, do you hear that music? They're like, no. I said, it's coming out of that speaker. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, it was so, I wasn't on any drugs. They didn't put me on any meds. I was only on antibiotics because everything else shut my body down. Okay. So I'm only on antibiotics. All right. And so anyways, because I checked it, I have all the records. And the day that I went into the bottom tier, the next tier down, the music stopped. So I went on a crazy thing. I'm like trying to figure out what is this fucking music. Okay. So there was a study that was out by, I think it was New York, NYC, like the major person over there. I'll have to find it and send it to y'all. But people with not only traumatic brain injuries, but near-death experiences that are coming out of it, 95% of them hear this beautiful angelic music. And
yes,
I think it's heaven. It was wild.
It's the angels singing.
It is. It freaking was. And then after that, I'm in there for another month. I leave my whole hospital room. There's no windows. There's no nothing. So I've been in there for 2 months. I leave and I start reading everything and everybody. It's like my gift went on super drive. Like we're in downtown Houston leaving. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, that hobo. I love him. He's just such a great soul. And I'm like, the grass is so green. Oh my sky. And
I was going to ask if it enhanced your abilities at all.
Yeah.
So yes.
God. I can't tell you how many. I stayed in Houston for 3 months recovering from that because they kept wanting to see me because they were so. It's still in my brain fluid. It's just inactive. So I have an inactive staph infection in my brain fluid. Yeah, and so there's like 1 in 20 people. Like 20 people have it, and so I have to go back every single year to get it tested to make sure that it's inactive still. So it's like a time bomb, right? But I after that, I can't tell you. I probably did, and I wasn't professional yet or anything, right? But I was doing readings for fucking everybody. I went to the gym with my dad and sat there in the hot tub. I read somebody that was sitting in the hot tub with me, and I was like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that was my biggest one.
And then you had one more after that?
Yeah, so my last one was really cool. So that was like what, 2015. This one was 2018. I was working at a software company, and I was doing obviously the back end for accounting. That's what I got my degree in. And I had just started working there. It was like 6 months into it. You know how when you work with a company and you go, oh my God, I'm going to get insurance, but then they make it start like that following year in January, right? Okay, yeah. So I didn't realize because of my issues, I've had 28 surgeries altogether, and 4 of them are like bring my bladder up because it falls down all the time. And so I can't feel like anything, right? Like the bladder part. Everything else is fine. The fun sock is great. But we're just gonna call that, all right?
Fun stuff.
It's called a fun sock because I had a hysterectomy, so that's all I have left. That's it.
Me too.
Right?
It's good.
It's the fun sock. So I thought I was getting like a bladder infection or a UTI, but I couldn't prove it. I bought the test strips. Everything was fine. I was like, okay, whatever. 3 weeks into it, I'm feeling dead tired. I'm at work. And I just felt like I was going to fall over. I was like, maybe I'm getting a cold. I go to walk out in the elevator, and all of a sudden I passed out. I dropped to the floor.
No.
Apparently an ambulance came. Yeah, they brought me to a hospital. This is what my story is. They took me out of the elevator. One of my coworkers, my manager, found me in there. It's a glass elevator. So everybody's like, why the fuck is Amie on the floor? And they took me over to this hospital over here. They call my mom. My mom comes down like into that day. And I coded because I had a septic infection in my body that had shut down my kidney. So my kidney failed and it caused me to like die. So in that time, I was only out for they said it was like 30 seconds because my heart has a lot of fluid around it from all these surgeries I've had. So essentially playing against borrowed time. But when it was like, the only way I can say it is, I think it was like I was almost about to wake up. And I was not in a dream. I was somewhere and I was in a bed, and it was the most beautiful white, down feathered, comfy, like marshmallow-esque bed I have ever seen in my life, with like gold metal piping, like the old school 1800s, but so elegant. And in front of me, there's these beautiful curtains that seem to just go on forever that are blowing with this golden glow. And I don't even know if it had a floor. Everything was just white. And all I hear is, and I look, and there's my fucking dog. My dog that I have in a box that I got cremated. Yeah, oh my God. The year before, I was with him when he died. He's running up. He hops in this bed with me. and I'm crying. I can feel his nose. I can smell his breath. I can feel what he feels like. And I'm like, oh my God, you're here. What are you doing here? And I saw my grandmother standing back in what would be like, I guess, a hallway or something. And she's just there, but she's like from the 40s at this point. It's not her normal. I have a picture of her up here, and that's what she looked like. And then I woke up and I was so mad. My mom was there. She was like, hi, you're here. I was like, I want to go back.
I want to go back and get my puppy.
Take me back.
That tugs at my heartstrings.
But those are all mine. And then it just keeps going.
We're both dog people. I am not kidding when I say that I have had family members die, and I was more devastated by my dog dying. And that sounds awful to say, but I feel like pets see a different part of your life than humans get to see. My dog was there when I was like laying on my kitchen floor crying, and she just lay next to me, you know. But I don't think before she passed, I don't think that I would have thought that pets would like come back, but after she died, she did. She would come back, and I would feel her lay like she had a spot on my bed where she would always lay, and I would be laying there at night, and I would be trying to fall asleep, and I would feel her weight to get on my bed again. And there's been several times that she popped up. So I love that you saw your dog in this experience, because I do think that they're waiting for us.
They're usually around you all the time too. They'll pop in and out. Sometimes I'll go through and I'll channel animals, and it's not the fact that they don't know that they're dead. They just like being with you.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
That's how I feel. Anytime her name was Bella, and anytime Bella comes around, I could always tell, because I'm just like, sometimes she comes and I'm having a bad day, but like she nudges my leg in a way that I only have body signs for a few specific spirit beings, and she's one of them, but she nudges my leg to get my attention every time she's here, and I'm like, I miss you so much.
It's like she shows up when you need her too. That's so cool.
So I know why, but why do y'all think that they show up when like stuff like that happens? Why do you think?
You go first, Melissa.
I don't know, because they just know. I don't fucking know. I think because they just know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's your theory?
I think it's the emotional bond that we have with them. I know that when I moved to Florida, my life was in such upheaval, and I noticed Bella. I noticed that she was slowing down, and she was getting up there in age, and I remember thinking that she was going to die soon, and I was devastated, and I like sat on my staircase with her, and I used to do this thing where I'd put my forehead to hers, and we would just lay there like that together. And I remember specifically asking her not to go yet because I needed her, and she stayed. And I think it's the emotional bond. I think that humans and animals have a different sort of bond than humans and humans can have. And that's not to say that human connection isn't important, because it is. I just think that there's something inherently magical about animals.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. So tell us.
Why do they come around? So best way I can understand from channeling and talking and like feeling, and I'm very analytical with like how my thing is trying to figure out why this happens, and
I'm like that
figure
too.
it out. Yes.
So
same. Think about this. Everything in the world is not only energy, right? But everything is vibration. Yep. Everything is frequency. Everything from your body, right? You break down your body all the way. What are you? Protons, neutrons, quibs, and electrons that are buzzing around in empty space that come together. Your thoughts are energy. Your feelings are energy. Just everything is. There's something to deal with. And that's also why we like music so much, because there's a scale in music, right? So there's lower vibrational, so dark, heavy, blah, blah, blah. Middle, which will talk about how all these kind of go together. And then there's higher vibrational, so like heaven, happy, love, all that. All these vibrations consist within the scale of a feeling, because a feeling is, or an emotion. Okay. Right. So like love is much higher in frequency than hate, or like all the way across, or shame, right? They're across the board. Sure. So us as vibrational, energetic beings, that everything is constantly shifting around us. The best way I can describe is that your natural state is the frequency of love. It is high. It is here. And the reason why we are here in this middle area, because things are in perfect alignment, but they have the opportunity to go really well, or they have an opportunity to be lower, right? So that's the beauty of this. And so when we ourselves are falling down away from our highest state, the spirits and the people that they love the most, or our animals, they will come in and they will try to raise your vibration up to what you are. And so that's what spirits do. So a lot of times when I'm channeling somebody, they go, oh my God, I never feel them around unless I'm in like a really bad area of my life. Well, it's because they're coming in to try to help you move up, but also you're so far away from your normal point that now you feel them. It's much like when you go through and it's cold outside, right? Versus like a normal day. You walk out there and you go, oh shit, I need a sweater, right? Whereas if you're out there for a while, you're like, oh, maybe it's not that bad because you acclimate to it. And so they always want to keep you here.
I love how you describe that. That is perfect.
Yeah.
As a parapsychologist, I'm really curious about the mind and how the brain works. Have you ever had yours studied by chance to see?
No, I want to. I want to.
Can we do that live? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I would love to see how it works when you're channeling or, meditating or whatever. I think that would be fantastic.
It's funny because I was thinking about now everything happens for a reason. There are no coincidences. And it's so interesting because this morning on the couch, so just fun side thing. If you notice, I'm not turning my head a whole lot. I have obviously my issues, but I had a really bad slip disc. And so at this moment, all of this is numb, but it's giving me a lot of time to sit there and think and not move around. Right. And so this morning while I'm waiting for my meds to kick in, I was sitting there with my cup of coffee and I was like, okay, this is normal waking. And then I was like, what does it feel like for me to actual channel? And there's a feeling I get when I sit there and it almost feels like this pressure. And it's almost like you're hyper focusing within. It's a weird thing. And I was like, this can be picked up by MRI. This can be picked up by something. If I am physically feeling it, this will be picked up on something. And I said, how can I get somebody to do this? How can I do that? And so it's interesting that you brought that up. That was 2 hours ago. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Yeah.
I think we should figure it out because I want to see.
So too. Melissa's husband is a doctor. So
maybe we could get it set up.
Road trip to Utah.
Road trip to Utah.
We will. There's been people pulling me to Utah, so I'll come up there and see you. Absolutely.
You should. You'd love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I put it on insurance?
Probably. If we bill it the right way, we'll get the right. Yeah. We'll find the right billing code to stick in there.
Well, considering I have to have my next brain scan pretty soon for my stuff. We'll just add it on there like that. We'll code it like that.
Heck yeah.
See?
Heck yeah.
There you go.
I mean, do they have to know that there was also a scientific experiment? See?
Okay. I was like, if everybody wants to get paid, I'll pay it. It doesn't matter. I know that it costs for people to show up and run the machine. Sorry, I'm very fair with everything. So
I think that's the way to be.
That's what insurance is for. I mean, we pay for it. We might as well get our money's worth, right?
You just let me know. And we have a ranch. I have a farm where I'm at. And so I would just have to grab, I have a farm. And so I would just have to tell my mom or somebody to come up and make sure that they watch the animals for a few days and I can fly up there.
I will be in Texas in April.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, where could we go?
The eclipse. I don't know, but the eclipse is happening. Yeah.
Where is it at? Where are y'all going?
Dallas.
I'm an hour and a half away.
Yeah, I live in far South Texas. I live in the Rio Grande Valley at the moment. So
I love them.
I know that's fun for me. But I already told her that I was going to come up, so we were going to look for something to investigate. An eclipse investigation.
And it's a full eclipse. It'll go completely dark. So it's going to be cool.
Really? Yeah, we can do that. Another thing too is that I know a lot of moving forward. I know a lot of really cool, spooky places. Okay, so I'm going to tell you one thing real quick. So my property that I bought, I'm obsessed with history and how
Me too.
All of
Me
that
three.
work. I know you.
Yep.
I know. Well, because the best way I can describe it now is that all of it is happening now. It's just in a different layer that we can't see and experience. That's it.
I love this.
And and then you can tap into it. That's why we get these things of oh my God, I can imagine what this was like. Well, that's because it is existing somewhere, but we can't make ourselves go into it. I guess you'd say, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. That's my next thing right now.
So It's funny that you're saying that because I also, speaking of coincidences, earlier today, one of my closest people in my life would. I've talked about this with them several times, but you know that scene in Iron Man, and this is my favorite way to describe it. It's Iron Man 1, where he's drawing the suit, and the people come in and they're holding it up, and it's just these little bits and pieces of the suit, and it doesn't make any sense, and they're trying to figure out what he's building, and it's not until they're all layered together that we get the complete picture. And so I always say it's like being an Iron Man, because we are only seeing one part of the tissue paper. And then when they're layered together, we see all of it. But then there's these moments where there's a rip or something, and we can experience what's happening in a different timeline. And I'm sure that you hold the same opinion. And I know that Melissa does, because we talk about this all the time, but time is a construct. It doesn't exist.
It's irrelevant. Yeah.
We can be alive now. We can be alive in another lifespan. Fully, I could be living in ancient Egypt right now. I could be in Italy eating pasta to my heart's content. And I say that because I can't eat gluten. So like, you know, there's some version of me that is enjoying all of the food that I can no longer eat. But it's interesting hearing you say that, because it's something that we keep coming back to, that like, what if it's not that necessarily that there's a haunting, but that there is a slip or like a tear? And we're experiencing it. And something that one of our other guests brought up is the idea that what if we are causing these hauntings or these legends by like, what if we are mutually experiencing
our thoughts?
And so they could be talking about us and being like, can you believe how haunted this place is? And we are telling the same stories, but it could all be man-made.
It is. Remember, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions all manifest into physical reality.
Yes.
Everything. Anything.
Yes.
You manifested me. I manifested you. It's all here. Look, I mean, even the freaking me sitting there thinking about that, and you talk that up. It's freaking magic if you go back and like think about it for a second.
It is.
And all the stuff that I remember. So one of my things is that, and y'all are going to be like, what? But I wanted to have such a pure experience in trying to figure out what this is, that I don't read books on it. I don't study anything. All the things that I'm talking about are just based off my own experiences and channeling and feelings. And so it's interesting now, this is what I'm talking about, right? Y'all have come and brought that to the table, but yet it didn't come from a book.
It is in books, by the way.
I know. Because other people have had that experience, right? But it's more pure and authentic if you're not, I guess you'd say, influenced by somebody else's work and studies.
If you're using your own intuition, I agree.
Yeah. I love that too, because I always say that I'm a skeptical believer, and that I'm more willing to believe something if I've experienced it myself. So there was a lot of these theories that Melissa and I have been talking about with our guests that I just was like, okay, until I experienced it. And then I was like, okay, now I want to know more.
Now I get it.
You got my attention. I want to know more now.
Yes. Oh, well, so let's get on this part, and then I'll go back, because I got to tell you about my land, and maybe y'all can come over here too at some point.
Yes,
because I have RV hookups and guest rooms, like you name it.
Okay. Oh, I have an RV.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then we can play with my chickens. I fucking love chickens. Anyway,
I also love chickens. Yes. That would be amazing.
So so one of the things, in what I do, people always go, do you get afraid? No. I think number one is anytime you're working with spirits or anything like that, you can't be afraid. And essentially, if you begin to get that way, I mean, I just tell them to fuck off like that, because it's a very like prominent, right? That's the feeling behind it, right? So it like pushes it back. Now, let's go into this though. Remember, I was talking about vibrations, frequencies, layers, and all that. So people go, oh my God, there's a demon in my house. I don't even like to talk about it, because again, talking about that stuff manifested into your reality, right? But I've never experienced anything of that. Now, is that not to be said that it doesn't exist? No, but am I or you or even you on a different level of vibration? So we do not experience or see that, because that's not what we're attracting to ourselves, right? Yeah. And these people that are lower or heavier, think of the people that talk about having demonic presence, stuff like that. What are they? They're usually on drugs, or they're usually in a really, really dark, heavy relationship. They have all these really negative things happen. And so that vibration or that energy is attracted to them.
It's attracting it. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is.
Yes. I do think that is interesting. And I do think that there is an element of what you believe is what you experience. So I will say I have been very loud about not believing in demons. And that's not to say that I don't believe in darker forces, but if you're coming to me and you're like,
it exists.
Yeah, I mean, I have experienced some of those darker forces, darker beings, but I still don't call them demons. Therefore, I don't experience demons in my practice. I've never met something that I would concretely say this is a demon because it does not exist in my landscape. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist for somebody else, but for me, this is a low level or a low energy entity and not a demon.
And Carly's also very good at telling him to fuck off. So
yes, it's my go-to. It's my favorite thing. So I actually am curious about this, and this will kind of lead into your land. But I know because you mentioned that your land is haunted. There's a lot of ghost towns around where you live. Do you have that same sort of foot traffic in your house, or are you just like, nope, fuck you?
Okay. So this is the whole thing. I don't know. My husband feels stuff a lot. Now, my husband is like anti-spooky. He didn't believe any of this stuff before he met me. Then he started watching my sessions, and he actually sat in a room with me once, and he was like, "Oh my God, what is that?"
My husband's the same way.
I love that.
See? Yes. But now he's my biggest supporter. He'll go and he'll hold the spirit box when we go to like a cemetery or whatever it is. Like he's there and he experiences feelings with me, and he's like, "Oh."
My husband's the same way.
See?
My husband bought me my first spirit box.
Oh, see? Yeah. So we're all this. So with that, when I go put up the chickens at night, does my butt pucker when I go on my land? Absolutely. There is something going on. Okay. It does. And the only reason, it just made, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, ooh. But I've also there is something. I've also kept my spirit box on a lot, and my phone will say lynching. Like a million times. It will talk about slavery. It will talk about, I mean, you name it. So I'm in a area called Rusk County, Rusk, and my land used to be owned by what was called Devereaux. Devereaux was one of the largest, you probably don't know what it is, nobody does, but it was the largest cotton plantation in the South between 1820 to 1865. And he owned over 3,300 slaves.
Holy moly.
That is a part of Texas history that we would all like to not, we'd all like to forget, but it's true. It's here all over.
It is. And so in my property, I not only have like that's a part of it. Now his property was 500 acres. So I owned 40 of it, right? The house property part was back about a mile away, but this is where like the outbuildings would have been and some of the fields. And then obviously burials and stuff like that, right? And there's a river running through or a creek running through. So this is where a lot of stuff would have happened. Now, right next to us, like the lot over, which is, I don't know, 1,000 feet, 500 feet away. And part of our property, it was back in the 1500s. It was a French and then Spanish fort. And the French and Indian Wars went on in my backyard. So there were all the different caddos, and they were trying to protect the forts. And there's the Indian burial grounds there, and there's the French, and then the Spanish, and then the little town called Chalk Hill that has 40 people living in it right now has their cemetery on top of it. I have right next to me one of the first free African-American cemeteries from like the ancestors of the slaves. They're right next to us from like the Reconstruction period, so 1865 and on. And then I have all these very old towns in like the very beginning before Texas became like within a mile of me.
Before it was Texas. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's just saturated and it's so cool and you can feel things. And then recently, about a month ago, I was having sessions and my front window faces the front, but our driveway's like a mile going or a half a mile going out there. And I saw these blue and red lights. So I finished one of my sessions and I went out. My neighbor texted me and she goes, Amie, there were 2 people that died right there in front of your house. They had played chicken. They were on a moped. They had played chicken in a truck and they had both gotten killed on their moped in our front driveway.
No.
And so, so I went back and did my sessions. There's obviously nothing you could do, but her name, I have pictures of it. Her name was Amanda. I'm not going to say the other gentleman's, but she would show up with me. every day for at least 2 weeks. I would get stuff. It would say, hold on, let me see if I can find it right now. It would say her name over and over and over again. And so she's buried next to my house.
Like she wanted you to know that she was there and that she knew that you could communicate with her. Yeah.
Are you ready for this? She was married to my neighbor. Didn't know that because we don't know them all, and she's buried right here. So I went and put flowers on her grave, and after I did that, I can't feel her anymore. So I haven't seen her in a while. It says I died very recent, died next door. She died right there. Sorry, I do a lot of spirit box stuff all the way through.
That's okay. I love that you saved the screenshots of them too, so that you can go back and look at them. Yeah,
that's so cool. I love hearing that. But how do you feel knowing what you know and seeing what you see and feeling what you feel? How does that make you feel about death and passing on into the next life?
I'm kind of excited for it.
You said you're excited, and I immediately went, "What is it like?" Sorry.
Well, there's a white fluffy bed and her dog.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
what more could you ask for?
I know. So the best way I can describe it is when you cross over, if you go to what's called the higher vibrational state. Now, a lot of people will go, oh, there's only one place. No, there's different levels there as well. There's a middle, there's a low, and then there's the high. People like to call it heaven. It's very light. I find a lot of people, and this is doing years of research and not knowing who I'm channeling and getting the same thing over and over and over again, right? That has to do. So that's proof, right? So, if you go to a higher vibrational state, then essentially you not only meet your family, right? You meet the people or the spirits that were your family. You know them by feeling. You see them kind of, but you know them by feeling. Just like if you lined up 5 women in a room and if you hugged each one of them, you'd probably be able to tell what your mom was instead of anybody else, right? That's your feeling. That's your connection. And so you meet them. Now you create your own version of heaven. So there's been so many times I'm going through and I'm channeling somebody, and what would be,
I've said that so many times.
Yes. Yeah. I'm channeling them in like what's a white room, because they come here to talk and I move up to talk. I'm not going to heaven. We're kind of like meeting somewhere. Right. I don't know what it is. But then they show me how they've created their own version of heaven. And a lot of times it's like the house that they grew up in, right? Or it's their favorite place to relax, or it's their favorite vacation, and they bring everybody in and it's like this big freaking party. The other thing is like you do exist, right? You keep existing. The middle vibration is usually when I talk to them, they're sitting on a wooden chair next to a table with a single light over them, and everything is dark, and they are like very down on themselves, and they're like,
like a train station.
Yeah, they're like, why did I do this? They should have known. I should have known. Now, do they stay there? No, because once they realize that they are the light, they are everything, and they have this communication, and then they move up. Right? Everything is in your control. Everything is in your control. But it's all surrounded by love. It's all so it's like learning. So you still learn over there too.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm just in a lot of pain all the time because of my illness. And so, I mean, I love doing everything. I love people. I love doing all this stuff, but it really sucks when like your body like falls apart every time. Right. But I don't know. I'll miss everybody, but I know that I'll be there watching them too. I just don't want to see them hurt, right? Because they're going to be sad, right? But I also know that time really doesn't exist. And with, think about it. I'm 35 now. I mean, that was a blink from when we were born. So I know it'll all be back and it'll all be okay. That's it. Well, ladies, I'm going to have to run because I have a session in 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
I wish we had like 10 hours to talk.
We can. We'll figure it out.
We will. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Let's go to Utah. Yeah. Let's go to your property. Let's go everywhere.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I mean, y'all just email me and let me know. I just have to plan at least like a month in advance and I'm good.
Cool.
Perfect.
Sweet.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love y'all.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
If you loved what you heard today, please consider leaving us a review. Death Becomes Us is an Emotional Pictures production produced by Sarah Nichols and Alex Eisenstein.